Well, hey everybody, glad that you're here. This is the inaugural, the first ever Middle School Football Academy Summer Clinic. My name is Eddie Young, and we have a group in Facebook that we've put together. So, guys, whether you're watching this live or you're watching it later on, we appreciate you spending a little bit of time hanging out with us. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Coach Justin, coming all the way from Germany. Coach Justin, talk to the people real quick for me.
So how you guys doing? I'm really happy to be here. Pretty excited that you guys set this up. So yeah, pumped to get going.
Yes, sir. So I tell you what, I'm going to get out of the way. Coach Justin's going to pull up his presentation, and that way, and remember, we'll be able to ask questions within YouTube, but I probably won't get to those till the end of the presentation, guys. So whatever you have, just type in, and we'll get to it eventually. Okay. All right. So Coach Justin, you go right ahead, brother.
All right. Okay. So here we go. Make sure I share my full screen with you guys. All righty. So, as Coach said, I'm Justin. I'm going to be talking to you guys today about some concept designs for some simple QB progressions. And just a little background, as he said, I'm over here in Germany right now. So I'm an American guy. I played my college ball at Wesley. It's a D3 school in Delaware. Played there from 2009 to 2012. And then I graduated, got a teaching degree, got my opportunity to come over here and play in Europe. And I was playing in Europe from 2014 to 2021. So long time. I played in a lot of different places under a lot of coaches and a lot of different offenses. I think that's one of the coolest things, for me to experience is going through and working with all these different coaches and learning the way that different people operate. Right, it's a lot of different systems that you're going to face. So I started off in Germany, then I went to Finland, Spain, Russia, and Australia. And now I'm back in Germany playing or coaching in Munich. I started here playing in Munich here in 2021 and then transitioned, had a little shoulder injury, and then just decided to hang up the cleats, start coaching, which was an easy transition going from QB to OC, I think. So this is my second year as an OC over here. What I want to talk about today is why we really need simple progressions for our quarterback. Because when I, thinking from a quarterback perspective, it's always very easy for me because I played that my whole life. And when I think about this, I really do believe that the quarterback is going to be the limiting factor for your offense, for the success that you have, and what is the limiting factor. Once you know that, right, then you can get into the conversation of, well, if the quarterback is really going to be the limiting factor for the offense, what is the limiting factor for the quarterback? And for me, I think that it is the mind of the quarterback, right? There's a lot of different things that you need to be a good quarterback. Of course, you need to be able to have, you need to be able to make the throws and things like that. But and of course, the leadership abilities that go along with it. But for me, it's the mind. It's them being able to look in front of the defense. They're standing there, being able to process some information and be able to go through it quickly. So knowing that if we have progressions that are a little bit more complex, I think that could potentially, that it's going to hurt the success of the overall team, right? So we start over here thinking about let me plug this in here. We start over here thinking about, what the limiting factor is for our offense. We can see it's going to be the QB's mind. And then from there, we jump back over. Once we simplify it, then we can kind of eliminate that limiting factor once we simplify our progression. So we can really set ourselves up for some good success. And playing and coaching over in all these different locations, I've been a part of a ton of different offenses that really set things up in a way that maybe wasn't as easy for a quarterback. And that could potentially be, troublesome in terms of getting some success. So over the years, I learned a ton of different things. So let's get into kind of the two main ways that I have seen coaches set up their offense. and kind of what the byproduct of that is. Now, it's not necessarily that one is better or worse than the other, but there's always going to be an effect to the way that you set something up. So there's always feedback loops. So split field versus a full field. When we look at this, right, if you don't know what split field concepts, it's essentially we're going to have one concept on this side of the field and another concept on that side of the field, right? So they don't have to be related. There doesn't need to be any connection between the two of them. A lot of times you'd want to set it up like that, but maybe you say like, hey, this is a too high beater on this side. So if we get too high, we come over here. And if we get one high, then we're going to work over here, right? Something as simple as that. And then you have your quarterback. He can kind of just pick which side and go there, right? And then you have the other version, which is a full field concept, which is essentially saying, you're going to say one word and it's going to tell all of your players what to do, right? The entire concept as a whole, rather than this, we need concept number one and concept number two, right? We have to have two different things. So when we think about setting up our offense, okay, let's go ahead and look at the positives and the negatives of each of these. So the positives for a split field is that it essentially limits the focus. If you think about, let's say you're this quarterback standing here, right? You're standing in shotgun, you're looking at the defense, you're not sure where to go with the ball. And you say, okay, well, if I'm going to choose the smash combination, all I need to do is look at this corner, right? If he bails, I throw the hitch. If he commits, I throw the corner. So it's really limiting the focus for the quarterback. There's nothing else that they really need to worry about too much, right? So that's one of the positives that goes along with that, right? Here, as I mentioned before, you can set it up as saying like, okay, well, if you get one high safety, let's say we get two high safety look, let's go ahead and target this smash combination. And then you as a coach, as an OC, all you have to do is just create a list of your two-man concepts and say, okay, well, if we get too high, this is what we want to do. If we get one high, that's what we want to do. And you can kind of just always pair the two of them together. So the quarterback can say, okay, well, too high, cool, go here. They rotate down pre-snap, and we're able to identify that. I'm not sure, with the level, of the coaches who are in here of what defenses you're facing, what they're doing. I can tell you for sure over here in Germany, this is a semi-pro type of level, and you will get a lot of disguising from coordinators. So, something like this, if they rotate pre-snap, you say, okay, well, cool. Let's go ahead and go to this side for that. Now, when we look at that, okay, so that's a positive that you have the ability to do that. But then when we look at the negatives for it, right, because it's not all positives. There's always going to be a negative to something. And this, to me, the negative is really what happens once we get to that third read, right? Let's say that, we have the ability, the corner plays slightly off, and then we skip the hitch, but he bails afterwards. And now we can't throw this corner route, right? We're not able to take our second read. Then what do we do? Right. And that question, like what now, that question is kind of, the big problem for me, because I want to make sure that I have an answer for my quarterback. Right. So you can have a check down, have your 1 to 2 to check down, or here 1 to 2 to check down. But the concept design, right, the overall design of this concept does not guarantee success with this third read. Okay. Because it's not like, these things are operating together. They're operating independent, right? So a Mike could just flat out play this. They could take this and they could take this and make both of those things be gone. And then take away your check down as well. So you don't really have a good solution for what now for that third read. Right. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, disguising, of course, that's always going to be a problem. That's going to occur with full field stuff as well, but we'll talk about the reads for that. But in this case, if we get a too high safety and pre-snap, we see this, okay, we're going to go to that side. And then right before the snap, they rotate down, take away the hitch, corner's going to end up bailing, take away this corner out. Now, again, we get to the same problem, right? When they disguise, we get to, okay, now what? Right. So that's the biggest negative that I see with split field. Now, I will say that there are teams over here one team in particular that I know that is a consistent contender for the championship in the GFL, the German Football League, and they use a split field system, right? They have completely separate concepts on either side of the field, but there's a big difference in the way that they operate. They try to come up with something like this. Okay, we'll talk about in a second here, but they don't have these operate totally separate. Okay, they'll call two different concepts here, but they will mesh together. Okay, so we look at the full field concept here, right? Here's the positive to the full field concept is that you can get a pure progression. Okay, this is a phrase that I'll talk about a bunch in this presentation. Pure progression, essentially, this is like my best friend as a quarterback. And I never really had this too much during my playing days, other than the offenses that I was completely in control of. But you essentially have a 1, a 2, and a 3. And if you can look, this is just left to right, right? Left to right. Okay, so we're just scanning across the field here. And this is really easy for a quarterback because what you don't want to have is you don't want to have your first read here and then your second read over here and then your third read over here. Because then if you think about I don't know how old this crowd is, but the last time I played Madden, they had that freaking scanning cone thing, and you could scan. And if you were a really, really poor awareness QB, you could see a sliver of the field. And if you're a really, really good QB, you could see the whole freaking field. But when we think about using that scanning cone, right? Imagine all of our quarterbacks are not able to see. They're not Peyton Manning. They can't see the whole field here. But if you're scanning, right, you're only going to be able to see a certain part. Your feet also have to pair up with that. So we want our eyes, right, our eyes and our feet to be quickly in the right position without too much difficulty. So going from left, so starting here, and then scanning slightly over to this is not that difficult of a task. And then again, from here to here is not that difficult of a task for a quarterback. It's very easy to get your feet and your eyes in the right spot when you use a pure progression. And this is something you simply don't have with a split field concept, right? And the other thing that I really, really love about this is I'm a big proponent of just teaching my players to think for themselves. I told you guys earlier, I played at Wesley College. The offensive coordinator that I had at Wesley College, his philosophy, Coach Knapp, was to have a hot dog during the fourth quarter, essentially saying like, I want to make sure my quarterbacks know the offense so well that they can just flat out run the show, right? That's the thought process that he wanted us to have, that we are completely understanding the defense. We know what we're facing, all that stuff. And we're able to really do that. And for me, of course, stemming from that branch, I'm not expecting my guys to do that in any way. But I do take from that smarter football players are better football players. And that's the main message that I want to send to my guys. And I think that a full field progression really helps to improve that learning, and here's a little example of that, let's say we're running this is a little Y cross concept here. And we have our base cover 4. If the mic, we're running this USM under the SAM over the mic here. If the mic drifts over, right, that's going to open up, and this SAM drifts down here to the flat. That's going to open up this window, right? And let's say, you have a practice and your quarterback goes from 1, doesn't look good. 1 doesn't look good. So we come off to our second read. The mic jumps over, he throws his second read, and we get picked. Okay, well, now we've learned, right? What happens if the mic jumps over? That's why we have this dig on the backside. Okay, so once we get to 2, if it doesn't look good and we see the mic is the problem, they know to work to this backside dig, right? And then, of course, from there, if we throw the dig and the safety jumps it and picks it, okay, well, then what's the solution? Then we can say, and players will come up with this stuff anyways on their own because they want to win. So if they start to see problems over and over and over, they'll start to come up with little, hey, maybe we run a post here. If they're going to do this, if he's jumping this dig, maybe we run the post here, and then we can beat this guy here. So things like that, I love to have conversations with my players and ask them what solutions are to problems based on the concepts that we already run. And when you kind of give them when you pose the questions to them, right? We know this as, I think a lot of the guys in here are teachers. When we pose questions to students that, something that they're interested in, they will try to come up with some creative solutions, right? So for me, this just really promotes learning, which all around is a greatly positive thing, right? Greatly positive to promote studying the sport. Even if they're not going to be elite athletes growing up, you just want to get them to understand that whatever it is that they're doing, if you study and you focus on it, you ask questions and you're curious, you'll get some good solutions, whatever field you're in. So those are the positives to me. And then the negative is that it, really depends on what the level that of your quarterback, of your players. But there is a possibility that this is maybe a little bit too difficult of a system to go from 1 to 2 to 3 and have it check down and have an alert or something like that. But I don't think so. And I think it's just maybe a matter of like, can your QB throw a backside dig, right? Or maybe you shouldn't be throwing digs in the first place because it's not the best. It's not the best for your offense. Your receivers can't make the catch and your quarterbacks can't make the throw. And if that's the case, there's other concepts that you can use following the same idea of the full field principles. Now, I will also add, coming back to what I said earlier about the elite team over here in Europe who uses split field. Now, we can look at this is a Y cross concept, right? So Y cross, everybody in the air raid, knows this or weak flood, however you want to call it, right? But it's the same idea, right? And you can do this in a couple of ways. Now, you could say this is concept number 1, and then over here you can run smash, right? So that will work. That works just fine. The corner will be the first read, same idea. You could also run a little hinge and a slot fade, and it's the same idea, 1 to 2 to 3. Okay, so there's plenty of different ways that you can really do this, and it doesn't need to be the same thing each time. You can use split field concepts, but you just have to tag the right concept on this side to ensure that you have the same progression. And then when you tag the two of them together, your quarterback needs to be aware of what that is. That's why I think that it potentially could be a little bit too difficult. So I just prefer having one word. And then if you want to tag something, let's just spread right, Y cross, Z post, right? Very easy thing to just tag a single player with that. But now what I want to do is kind of go through a couple different examples of kind of how this plays out. Right here, we have a split field concept. And I've actually, now my thing is going nuts on me here. There you go. Back to normal. So I have run stick in the past exactly like this, right? And this is a split field version of the stick concept, right? So stick concept, you have this is your main triangle that you're working here. You've got your fade. You could treat this as a 1, in terms of a progression. But realistically, the only time for me, the way I say, like, if you have a corner who's pressed, okay, we'll take it. If this guy is really better, my receiver is really better than this corner and he's pressed, we'll take it. I've also played in a game where we took our 6'7" tight end and put him out here and just threw fades to the field, jump ball situations, and the teams had to really change their strategy. That would really only be applicable, if you see, some teams will do this. They'll take their Sam, walk him out over the number 2, and then you can have, a 2-read coverage, and then, they'll just lock up this guy on the outside. And if you get that, okay, now we can take that fade. Outside of that, we're going to stick with the 1 to 2, right? And there's a little bit of a run and shoot style type of thing in here, where if it's zone, we settle. If it's man, we break and run out. He's going to have this route either way. But this is the same idea, right? Now, let's say we drop back. We don't like this, so that's not there, right? This doesn't look good either. And then they end up guarding the stick. Now what, right? You're faced with that same question, okay? You're faced with the same question. And we all teach quarterbacks, if it's quick game, you don't start on one side of the field and then go to the other. You can't do that, right? That's not how it works. On split field concepts, you can't just, it's either pre-snap, we're either going to the left or we're going to the right. That's it, right? Those are your two options. So you could say, hey, if we get a 2-high safety look, let's work on this side. If we get a 1-high, then we can hit this slant flat on the backside, and that would look fine. But again, same problem, right? Same problem. And then how do you handle that, right? So this is what I like as I think a better version of stick. Okay, so for me, this stays the same. This stays the same. All this stuff is the same, but the only difference is that it's not split field anymore. When I call trips right stick, this guy already knows what to do. This guy already knows what to do. Okay. You can, of course, tag things if you want, and there's also a lot of teams that they will run a system that allows them to use, let's say you have whatever your code word for stick is, but you call that. But then if you want to, you can call stick plus dragon or whatever it is. You can tag something if you want to, but if you don't tag anything, it's the base version. And here's where this is really beneficial, right? If we're running the stick concept, right? He's going to take the flat, corner's going to bail, take this. Okay, we have our safety in here and our free safety back here. Okay, so if the Mike jumps over and plays number 3 on the stick and he gets over quick enough to take this away, that opens a lane, right? Our Will is going to have to try and get out here inside hip, but if he sees somebody working into the flats, a lot of times it'll pull somebody down. Right. And then we have the ability to really have a good lane between the Will and the Mike here. Right. That's where we have a throwing lane where we can have this dig come in. And from your quarterback's perspective, it's actually quite simple. Right. We're looking here. If it doesn't look good, we just slightly jump over. And if that doesn't look good, then we slightly jump over again. Right. So we're just slightly turning our shoulders a little bit each time. But it's not a huge drastic movement with this. Okay, so that's the really beneficial aspect to how this works. Okay, and here's another example here. This is a full field concept. This is a spacing concept, and this is if you look at how this is really designed here, you're starting on the right side of the field and you're working across the field. Right, 2, 3. Check down, 1, 2, 3. So it's just working right to left in this case. Okay, you have the alert, and I'm actually going to show you some film of how this works here on the outside. But essentially, we're anticipating always we can beat the slant with this, beat the corner with this slant because he's going to take outside leverage, and even if he tries to jump it, we should always win inside leverage. That's the idea. And then really what we're doing is from a quarterback standpoint is, if this guy commits, right, we can either do 2 things. If he commits aggressively or he pressures, then we can just fire the outside slant because it's a guaranteed completion here. Any safety, who's going to be around, they have to be responsible for 2 vertical. Very, very rarely will you get a pressure off the edge and somebody working to the flats and then nobody covering this area. So that's kind of an easy completion there for you. And if you don't like that, again, it's the same idea, right? Imagine our little vision cone. Now we just go to there, to there, to there. Okay. And it's just working slightly over, small movements, pure progression. And this is very QB friendly, right? You'll hear that as well, that there are some offenses that are QB friendly. This is really what they're talking about, right? They want to have built-in easy solutions to problems. They want the progressions to be pure progressions, working across, scan across the field. Also, this really isn't a part of it, but just a basic note here. A lot of times with protection, if you're going to run a half slide, you can of course do a big on big protection. But I like a half slide a lot of times as well, and always sliding away from the quarterback's first read, unless you get some absolute stud, right? You have some dude who's like Aaron Donald out here, we're going to slide to him. Okay. But outside of that, you can usually slide away from the quarterback's first read, just to make things quite simple for your quarterback and always protect their blind side. Okay. Here is another variation here. This is a bow concept. And when I think about this, I was actually going through this last night and kind of looking at the presentation again and thinking like, well, middle school coaches, like, just make this a stay route, right? And just make this a gift. Okay. This is a gift in the offense. This is another terminology that I like to use in my offenses. I always have alerts and then I have gifts. I can't remember exactly where I heard that. Of course, I didn't make that up. This is all just everything in football is stolen from somewhere else. But in this case, press. If you get press, you like the matchup. Okay, cool. You take the alert. And if you don't like that, it's just a nice triangle here, right? Right to left, right? Another example of a pure progression here. Very, very easy for a quarterback to be able to work this progression, right? And you don't end up with that question of now what, right? Because you have the solution. Somebody's going to be open. And another mini thought to this is, how can you, with the question of determining whether somebody's going to be open, how can you know that someone is going to be open with your concept design, right? And for me, this is just a matter of saying, like, well, if you're using proven concepts that you can find, like, this is the bow concept right here. This in the middle is a bow concept. This is a spacing concept. This is a stick concept, right? If you find proven concepts that work at the high school, you find them at middle school, high school, college, NFL, these concepts work at all levels. That's the stuff that you want to use. I'm not too big of a fan of just saying, like, oh, well, how about we just have this guy run here? Okay, yeah, and then he's going to run in here. Oh, I think that'll work. Well, is it proven to work? Because if it's not proven to work, then I'm not too big a fan of that. Of course, it's my personal philosophy, but I think that's the easy way that you can get your players to really understand what's going on, and teaching them, right? If you're making things up, then you don't have the evidence, right? It's a lot harder to get buy-in and show something to effectively work if there's no evidence for it effectively working. So you're gambling a little bit at the beginning, and everybody, there has to be some innovators. Otherwise, football would stay the same, right? So that's also not good. But I like to be, if that's a spectrum, right? Innovation and super basic. I want to be somewhere in the middle of that spectrum there. But just a little side note here. And now what I want to do is show you guys some film, okay, of this, some of these concepts here. And right here, let me draw on this as well, actually. Right here, we have the spacing concept. So here are double slants. Tight end's going to be running this. He's going to be running the curl. Running back's running the flat, right? So this is the spacing concept that we showed here, right? That's this. Okay, so now when we look at this, okay, just to kind of put this in action here, let's see. So we end up getting some edge pressure right here from this Sam, right? So this is the idea of, if it's going to be there, then we can just catch step and fire that slant, right? Safety is going to roll down and take the number two, because if number two runs vertical, he's got to be responsible for that. If he takes 3 steps, that's vertical enough in this situation, so he's got to commit to this slant. So it's an easy completion to the outside, right? It's also quite helpful when you have Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. It's a nice 2 receivers to put on one side of the field. Very, very few people have that. Okay, but the concept works, right? You might not have the, probably not, studs out here like this, but the concept does work. This could be a random middle school team, and this throw and catch would be the same thing. And then you see down here at the bottom, if these don't work right here, he's already ready for it, right? So this is going to time up. Another thing with this is the, this is why I like using proven concepts as well. This guy running this middle route over the ball, he's got to settle 4 to 6 yards, right? So let me see. So this is going to be 4 to 6 yards. This is going to be 7 to 9 yards in that range. And that's going to time up better with the quarterback's footwork for this, right? Here's another example here. This is I believe this is a bow concept here. And here's what they're doing. Bow concept, by the way, is going to be this one right here. That's the bow concept. So here is how this plays out. Let me draw on this here. Get out of here. Okay. Oh, me and technology, not best friends. Okay. So here we've got, this is going to be our dig type of route. He runs this more like a glance. We're going to take this guy, run him off. Dolphins really love this motion. He's going to run off as well. So they're not really looking at either of these two. These are going to be alerts in their minds. And then essentially what you're going to have is the running back being our read out here, and this being our read here. So that's the triangle. So when we talk about a triangle in the middle of the field, right, the running back is going to be the 1. That's going to be the 1. Our dig by the number 2 receiver is going to be the 2. And then our check down here is going to be the 3. Okay. And this is a pretty easy concept to be able to use here. It's not too difficult. And these throws can be made at multiple different levels here. So you don't have to have, I mean, all of the motion here, this is just window dressing, right? You could just straight up line up in the original formation. You don't have to do anything with motion. I know there's a lot of coaches who do like to motion, where we try to be around 30% at a minimum, but sometimes that gets up a lot higher and sometimes it's a little bit lower. But here's the spacing of this concept, right? That's our triangle right in here. Okay. And by the design of this concept, it makes it very easy for a quarterback to be able to say, well, all we're going to do is we're going to start with our running back. Okay. And if he breaks out or if he draws a flat defender out, then we just immediately throw it to the dig. Now this is also a cool variation because he does a no look pass here, but no one else is doing that, right? That's only elite NFL quarterbacks, or maybe not even elite, just NFL quarterbacks who are able to make throws. I think it's pretty debatable whether two is an elite QB at the NFL level. I'm a huge Dolphins fan, by the way, so I say, yeah, he's a stud. He's got to stay healthy though. But looking at this from this view here, all right, essentially all we're really trying to do is, in this case, we're taking whoever our flat defender is going to be. If he widens, we throw the next read. So it's very easy for the quarterback. And I want you to look at the footwork for the quarterback, right? And look at where he's facing. So from here, okay, he doesn't really move at all, but he'd be able to slightly adjust and fire the flat route to the running back, while also being very close to the position that he needs to be in to throw that dig. Okay. And here's another example of that. What we have here from the Packers is going to be a stick variation. Now they do this also a little bit crafty because, if you have Aaron Rodgers, of course you want to do cool things. They run the stick here by the number 2, flat route by the number 3. He's going to run this go route, and then they run a out dig. But I would just say just run the dig, right? The timing works out so much better to just run a dig. And then you need something in the flats over here. It could be a running back check down. It could be a swing. They do it as the swing here. But I want you to notice what happens. So he looks over to the stick. Safety comes down. And now the flat route, he determined pre-snap it's not going to be there. So he didn't even spend too much time on this at all. He just went right to his stick. And if that's not there, then he's essentially working that same triangle, right? And this is with the dig, with the stick, and then the running back running the flat here. So here is, let me eliminate that. Okay, so here's the concept again. So I want you to also notice, let's go to the other view. Makes a really nice throw here. Okay, but it's late on this, so you can tell the timing. He was kind of hoping that this would be a little bit faster. But watch his footwork, right? Yes, it's Rodgers, he's elite, but this doesn't need to be Pickles. This doesn't need to be an elite QB to make this throw here. So let's see it here. So right now he's looking, bam, he could fire it, doesn't look good. So now look at that slight adjustment in his body language, right? From there to there. And that's easy, right? That's something that every QB will be able to make that movement. It's not too difficult. You're not asking them to turn to the other side of the field or anything like that. It's just a slight adjustment on a clock. You're going from 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock. It's a small adjustment in terms of where they need to be facing here, right? And then that he was delayed here with this throw. It could have been much better if it was just a straight up dig. But yeah, you can see how that kind of plays out there. Okay. And then here's another version. This is a two different concepts, right? So this is the split field. Okay, so this is a really cool version because you get a chance to see that even at the elite level, right? What they're going to do is they're going to take split field concepts and they're going to combine the two of them to make sure that the reads operate kind of as one. So here's what we have. We have that bow concept again. Teams really, really love this concept here. So it's either going to be, if it's zone, he settles. If it's man, he draws them out. And then this is the guy who's in a bind, right? He's going to be wrong either way. Out here, I think they just have a go route or something like that. And then here, they're going to run a variation of smash, right? So it's just a high-low on the corner. So if you think about this, right, we talked about the bow concept originally, and we had a clear out here and a running back running the flat. Well, now they get to that flat route in a just slightly different way. They run a whip, okay, and that clear out is getting there with a smash. So now they have the ability, if they want to, they could say, hey, if it's one high, work this side or work this side. If it's too high, work, they could define it like that, or they could treat it as a 1, 2, 3. And if it looks good, we take it. Or you could say, hey, the 1 is going to be just looking at the corner here or looking at the space. Is there more space here or is there more space here? And if you say both of these spaces count as 1, and again, your second read is going to be here, third read's here. I wouldn't do that at a smaller level because that requires a lot more focus from a quarterback. But you can see how you have the ability to do that. If you have a really, really stud QB who just has a really good feel for where people are at, then you can operate with something like that. Okay, so here's the version that they're running here. Same type of spacing, right? So there's our triangle, 1, 2, 3, right here, and they decide to throw this whip route here. I don't really think this is necessarily open, but if you're Patrick Mahomes, you kind of just do whatever you want, right? And you're just good at it. You probably could have just waited and hit Kelsey for a big gain, but we'll go ahead and just trust that Patrick Mahomes knows what he's doing. Okay, so you can see how easy this progression is from left to right in this case. It's just left to right. Very, very simple for a quarterback here. Okay. If that didn't look good, okay, let me draw this here real quick. If this throw out here, that's his vision right now. That's his little cone. If that didn't look good, he doesn't need to work all the way across. This is already working into his view here. So this is going to be a lot easier for him to just slightly turn and get right back into his new tunnel over here, right? And he'll be able to see that dig working in there, okay? Dang it, it's doing this again on me. All right. So essentially, that's really all the main things that I have with this. And what I want you guys to take away from this is, because you can't really get anything unless you actually, spend some time thinking about it and applying the information. But for me, the biggest thing is to just say, okay, well, let's go ahead and write out all of the plays that you have or the concepts, right? If you have a lot of plays that you don't necessarily think fit into like a specific concept, right? Like we talked about multiple different concepts, and there's a whole bunch of them. If you can't name the concept, then just write out the plays, draw them up, and then figure out how you can tweak the progressions to make it more of the pure progression, right? Make things simpler for your quarterback in terms of working from right to left. This is the easiest thing to do rather than having, one over here and then one over here and then one over here. You want to make sure that these progressions are always designed in a way that somebody gets open at the right time, right? You have to pair the footwork with that, of course, but you want to make sure that somebody will always be open, and that essentially, for me, I think that the way to do that is really to stick with these basic proven concepts, right? Make sure somebody's open, and make sure that's easy for your quarterback to kind of get through that progression. So that's really all that I've got for today. And then I'm not sure if we're doing a Q&A part of this, but I would definitely open the door to questions here. Now let me unshare this here.
Coach, that was excellent. Thank you so very much. I gotta tell you, and I did leave a comment in this one. Your breakdown of spacing, that's one of my favorite plays. I love it. I think it gets you out of a lot of jams. But I was really intrigued by that backside dig you put with the stick concept. I really like that.
Yeah, that I've never really been able to run that concept while I was playing, but once I stopped and I started coaching, that's when I introduced some of those concepts. The spacing concept's one of my favorite ones. We run it a ton here, and that dig on the backside has really saved our quarterbacks a handful of times where they get to that stick, it's not there, and they just slightly turn, and now it's right there, ready to fire. Yep, right in their view.
I love it. I tell you one closing question that I'll give for you before we sign off is when you're thinking about football, specifically at the middle school level, if you
Mhm.
could give one bit of advice for a coach, what would you say?
Ooh, I mean, I think running the ball is always going to be the number one thing in order to win. And you don't need anything too fancy with it. But I think if you just master inside zone, outside zone duo, get the blocking schemes right, and make sure that your players really understand the rules. I think that's the biggest difference maker. I see way too many offenses screw up blocking schemes. Players step the wrong way. They don't know where to put their eyes. Zone play, you have somebody crashing in, and you don't look to your play side gap. Little things like that will really kill an offense. And I think run game is number one most important factor to winning.
I'm gonna put it in my back pocket. We're gonna run with it, Coach. Once again, thank you very much, Coach Justin. For everyone who's been watching, I really appreciate you all. Make sure to come back for our next session that's starting at 11 o'clock. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you later. Bye bye.
Appreciate it.